Hi everybody, this is Zen Honeycutt. I am going live on my personal Facebook page instead of Moms Across America because every time I try to go live on the Moms Across America page and I type in live, it writes evil instead. So I don't know what's going on with Facebook, but apparently on the Moms Across America Facebook page, it thinks live should be spelled evil. Anyway, so I'm going live today to talk to you about the latest blog that we just posted today called Bear Birth Defects and Toxic Baby Food. And hi, Lori. Hi, Jill. And it's a very important issue, obviously, because without the health of our babies, we do not have a healthy future. Without a healthy future, we don't have healthy military, healthy teachers, healthy politicians to make good choices about climate change and, trade relations and essentially being a world power, right? Without health, we have nothing else. Nothing else matters. We cannot be activists if we don't have health. We can't have a healthy family. So health must come first. And we have, seen the very disturbing report that came out, I believe it was October 17th now, so it's been out for a while, from Healthy Babies Bright Future, where they tested 168 different types of baby foods, organic and conventional. And unfortunately, folks, the highest levels of heavy metals were in organic baby food products. And this was really disturbing to me. So we didn't put a blog out right away about this because I'm the type of person that has to wrap my head around something before we put something out there. I don't like to just put information like, here it is, bad news, everybody, just dump it on your plate. I want to know, why is this happening? What can we do about it? And where do we go from here? Okay, so on our blog on momsacrossamerica.org, the blog that we put up today called Bear Birth Defects and Toxic Baby Food, we explain it, okay? We've interviewed some scientists and farmers and looked at scientific studies from people that have studied the soil. And the fact is that because a farm is organic, they can't use certain types of synthetic fertilizers, right? Which have higher levels of, for instance, wait, let me just open up the blog here. Higher levels of the nutrients that they need, like nitrogen and, the phosphorus and all of that stuff, right? So they have restrictions on the type of chemicals that they can use in organic farming. So instead of using the chemical fertilizers, they use manure. Now, the restrictions on manure fertilizers are not as good. In fact, they can use fertilizer from GMO farms, right? From animals fed GMO feed with glyphosate sprayed on it. And we know now that from Seralini's studies in France that the animals fed GMO grains with glyphosate on it are most likely eating also arsenic and heavy metals, because the Roundup tested in France had levels of arsenic and heavy metals in it. Now, it has not been confirmed in the US that Roundup has glyphosate and heavy metals in it, but that was, some really good testing done in France. It was all 12 samples that had heavy metals in it. So we've got heavy metals coming into the food supply through the 1 billion pounds of glyphosate herbicides used a year. And we also have heavy metals coming in. Okay, so the heavy metals and the glyphosate is sprayed on the ground, and the root crops are grown in there, right? And it can uptake into the root crops like the carrots and sweet potatoes, which had high levels of heavy metals in the baby food. But what also is happening is that when the soil is destroyed by glyphosate herbicides, right? We all know that it destroys the beneficial bacteria in the soil. Then the farmers need more. Sorry, this is for conventional farming. The farmers need more and more fertilizers, right? Now, in organic farming, they're not using glyphosate, but they do need different types of fertilizers. They need the manure fertilizer, which can be from the GMO fed cows, right? Which can have glyphosate in it. So the glyphosate destroys that, can contribute to destroying beneficial microbes in the soil, and then they need more and more fertilizers, right? So it's just a compounding factor of destroying the soil and needing more fertilizer in the soil. Now, glyphosate is a double-edged sword, folks. This is what we learned, okay? That glyphosate, you all know, you've heard me say before, glyphosate is a chelator. It can grab onto and make unavailable the vital nutrients of any living thing it touches. So that means it grabs onto manganese. It grabs onto, let me get the list here. It grabs onto manganese. It grabs onto iron. It grabs onto sulfur, calcium. It also can grab onto arsenic and aluminum and prevent the uptake of those heavy metals into conventional crops when there are higher levels, right, of glyphosate on the soil, because it's being sprayed right on the conventional crop, either as a drying agent or as a pre-emergent or during the growth of GMOs, right? So glyphosate can prevent the uptake of important minerals like manganese and, you know, calcium and iron and zinc and all of potassium, but it can also prevent the uptake of heavy metals. So that's why organic in some cases may have higher levels of heavy metals, because there's not as much glyphosate there to prevent the uptaking of those heavy metals into organic. However, organic is going to have higher levels of the minerals that are important to us, the manganese and the potassium and all of that. So it's a double-edged sword. You see what's happening here, right? The chelation is impacting the minerals and the heavy metal levels in the soil. Now, not all of the heavy metals are treated the same. According to SAMCEL, the titanium and cadmium and lead the presence of glyphosate can increase the uptake of other heavy metals such as titanium and cadmium and lead inside of conventional foods. So some conventional foods will have higher levels of certain metals, and SAMCEL says that cadmium is a huge problem. So you want to make sure to get your heavy metals tested, folks, and I would ask to go beyond the basic 4, which is cadmium, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, mercury, and lead. Because some holistic health practitioners are saying that high levels of thallium and maybe even barium are showing up in people because they're using a certain kind of ash on kale. So even organic kale can contribute to higher levels of thallium. So, you know, it's so tricky to keep up with the food supply now. You know, I don't know if this is the case with all kale. I don't know if this is the case with everybody in every area where it's growing, but just be aware that you should probably be getting your heavy metals tested. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I would do it at least once a year. I don't, you know, if you're not doing well, I would do it more often. So that's one of the reasons why heavy metals are in organic and could be higher in organic than in conventional food. Now, what does that mean for us? Does that mean you're just going to eat conventional now? Because no, if you just eat conventional, then you're going to be exposing yourself to higher levels of pesticides. So it's kind of like, do you choose pesticides or heavy metals, right? It's really tricky. So what the Healthy Baby's Bright Future suggests is that for babies especially, they avoid rice products, even organic. They just avoid rice products because there's just too much arsenic in them. And they avoid fruit juice, like apple juice. I know that's like, you know, that's like everything to a baby, but just avoid apple juices and just regular, you know, fruit juices for babies. Just give them water instead, okay? Breast milk and water for babies. And then also they should avoid sweet potatoes and carrots, because as root plants, you know, as a root, they are absorbing more of the heavy metals. And really that's so unfortunate to have to avoid that. But there are a lot of other vegetables and fruits that you can feed babies that are not going to be nearly as problematic, you know, like bananas and, I mean, as long as they're organic, right? You know, bananas and mangoes and squash. I mean, you can feed a baby squash all day long. Organic peas, organic beans, like once they can pick things up, right? There's a lot of other foods. They don't have to eat carrots and sweet potatoes and rice and have fruit juice right now. So there are other things that you can do. Now, what we've asked you to do in our blog, and I'll put the link right here. What we've asked you to do is please tell your senators and your representatives that you want to have, let me go to the list here to make sure I word it exactly right, because I have a lot of wants. There's a lot of stuff I want. But what we asked for you in the blog is to ask them to immediately ban the use of glyphosate-based herbicides and other toxins as pre-emergence and as a drying agent on all crops. Like, there's really no reason that glyphosate-based herbicides should be used as a drying agent on any crop. And that's why we're seeing higher levels of glyphosate in oats and wheat and maybe some rice. But some people tell me they're spraying it on rice, and some people say they're not. So I'm not completely sure about rice, and there's different practices in different regions of the world. But for sure, they have sprayed it on wheat and on oats as a drying agent, and on barley and things like that. So you want to be very careful of having non-organic wheat, barley, and oats in baby food. That's just a no-go, and you want to avoid rice for all reasons. But what we're asking our senators, I digress, we're asking our senators and representatives to please ban the use of glyphosate-based herbicides and other toxins as a pre-emergent and as a drying agent on all crops. Many countries have stopped this years ago, and if we did that here in the US, we would eliminate the exposure of glyphosate to people between 50 and 90%. I mean, that's the majority of the reason why human beings are consuming glyphosate today, is because of glyphosate being used as a drying agent. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't get it if it's used as a pre-emergent or directly on GMOs. We do, but the levels are highest when it's used just before harvest, and you know, we consume the crop shortly after. So number 2 is to phase out the use of glyphosate-based herbicides as a weed killer. Now, we understand they're not just going to say, no, you can't use it anymore flat out, but Germany and France gave their farmers 3 years. I don't see why there's any reason why our farmers aren't capable of phasing out glyphosate within 3 years too. I think our farmers are just as smart as the farmers in Germany and France, and they can do it too, right? And number 3, demand that the EPA require long-term final formulation testing with blood analysis on all pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides used on animal or human crops. Like, we need to insist that they test for toxicity, reproductive, endocrine disrupting effects, and cell damage, liver and kidney damage, not just carcinogenicity. Because currently, they are really only testing for carcinogenicity and for toxicity in the sense of like morbidity, meaning that over 50% of the animals or test subjects die within 96 hours. That's like, okay, if they die within 96 hours, then we shouldn't use this chemical on our food supply. Well, what about after 96 hours? What about a year later? What about 2 years later? I mean, we don't only eat food for 96 hours. We eat food for our whole lives, and we're being exposed to these chemicals for our whole lives. So I am so sorry. I have alarms going off, even though my phone is on silence and airplane mode. I don't understand that. Okay. Anyway, so that's what we want to ask our senators and representatives. Ban the use of glyphosate-based herbicides as a pre-emergent, as a drying agent, phase out the use of glyphosate-based herbicides as a weed killer, and demand that the EPA require long-term final formulation testing with blood analysis, not just on one ingredient in the pesticide, okay? And I'll say this until I'm blue in the face. I will say this until it happens. We need final formulation testing on all chemicals used in our environment and on our food, not just testing on one ingredient in that formulation. It just doesn't make any dang sense at all. You can't say that a product is safe if you haven't tested final formulation. It's just not scientific. It's just not smart. Okay, so we want to also ask you to sign our petition to Bayer, and that's on our website. If you go to the article, it's momsacrossamerica.org, and you click on blog, it's the very first blog at the top. It says Bayer birth defects and Bayer birth defects and toxic baby food. And at the very bottom is the link to our petition to ask Bayer to stop selling Roundup and glyphosate-based herbicides today. And really, this is the only action that they can take that will restore any kind of integrity that they ever want to have. They simply have to stop selling glyphosate-based herbicides. They cannot continue to sell that product when 42,000 people are suing them for cancer. They cannot continue to sell that product and be in integrity. That product is not doing what they said it would do. It is not labeled the way it should be labeled. It has not been final formulation safety tested, and their own staff members have admitted that they cannot say that it does not cause cancer. And they've even edited out the words that the test results suggested that glyphosate suggested but did not prove that glyphosate, the test results suggested but did not prove that glyphosate could cause miscarriages or caused miscarriages, right? They took out the word suggested. They edited this out. Donna Farmer edited out the words that the test results suggested that glyphosate causes miscarriages. This is a crime against humanity, folks. I'm getting emotional just thinking about all the women who have eaten glyphosate sprayed foods and have had miscarriages. How Donna Farmer can live with herself after editing that out of that study and having that published. It's just beyond my comprehension how somebody could do that. A study actually said that it suggested that glyphosate caused miscarriages, and she edited it out. That's a crime against women. It's a crime against babies. It's a crime against humanity. She should be in jail. And I'm just so upset about that when I think about it. So we need to keep going. So what we need to do is we need to demand that Bayer stop selling this product. We need to tell our representatives and our senators that they need to get on the stick of this, and they need to get after the EPA and demand that they do their job. Now, I know in this political climate, it is not very likely, and some of you may be laughing at me and thinking it's totally ridiculous. But here's the thing. I don't take actions based on whether or not it's likely, folks. I don't do that. I take actions based on the future that I want to have, the future that we want to create. And that future is one without glyphosate herbicides at all. And the only way that's going to happen is if we demand it, and if we ask for it, and if we, whatever, I don't want to say make deals, but if we say, okay, listen, ban it from desiccation, but phase it out for use, right? Like that's really kind of the only compromise that we can have here. And phase it out from weed killer use, right? But ban it now for glyphosate as a desiccant, as a drying agent, because that's how we're being exposed the most. That's how it's getting into vaccines, folks. Glyphosate is getting into vaccines. It's in our tampons, it's in our sanitary pads, and we wonder why so many women have cysts, right? And all kinds of reproductive problems. It's in our beer, it's in our wine, it's in all kinds of thousands of different kinds of food. And if you've been following us at all, you know this. So thank you very much for watching this brief Facebook Live. Well, actually, not that brief. It's been 18 minutes. But I'm not having our Moms Connect call tonight. I just wanted to do a Facebook Live and touch base and let you know about this article and call to action that we have. We want to have thousands of people asking Bayer to stop selling glyphosate-based herbicides altogether. And we want to get people all around the world to sign this petition, please. And we appreciate your sharing of this Facebook Live. And yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for what you're doing. And keep looking forward to more blogs. We've got some really good articles coming out later on this week. And we've got some great calls to action. And we also want to, well, this is the main call to action this week. So please, signing the petition. And I just also want to say Happy Veterans Day to all of the people who have served and sacrificed your time away from your family to protect our country. And thank you to all the spouses and the children of the veterans who have, really freely, generously shared your loved one with the world to protect our country, because the freedom that we have here in America may not be what we want, but it is definitely greater than in many countries. I'm not going to say most countries, but we do have a lot of freedoms that many other countries don't have. We women can drive, we can get an education, we can, do all kinds of occupations that women in some countries cannot do. and we can travel from state to state without all kinds of checkpoints. And we're, you know, in our country right now, we don't have war bombs coming down on us, right? We have a certain amount of freedom right now that we appreciate, and I just want to thank the veterans. So thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate being with you, and have a very good Veterans Day evening. And I'll be back on our Moms Connect call next Monday night, and I'll be taking a break in the first 2 weeks of December because I will be in Japan, but I will be doing some Facebook Lives from Japan. I'll be on a 9-city book tour for my book Unstoppable that's been published in Japanese. And I'm very, very excited to be meeting with all the people there. So I will be seeing you next week and the week after, and then we'll be taking a 2-week break. So I hope to see you soon on our Moms Connect calls. Sign up on for our newsletter on momsacrossamerica.org. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Take care. Bye-bye.